Hi, everybody, and welcome on into another episode of Eye on the Eagles, your all-access pass to all things Avila Athletics. We're live from Tanner's at Redbridge, just off of the Avila University campus. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett. Our first guest on this Tax Day Monday, head football coach Derrick Alexander. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a fun reminder for
know,
anybody.
That was a reminder.
It's kind of a rude awakening for me, especially as we move further on, but less said about that, the better. It is mid-April, but it is still football season to an extent around here. I feel like that's not something that everybody necessarily understands, but season never sleeps for you guys, I know, and especially this time of year. Things are almost as important as they are this time in October. So can you tell us what you guys have been up to and what's coming up this week?
Well, we've been getting our team ready and prepared for the spring game. We've been we get a chance to have 15 practices during this time of year and kind of go over things that we need to improve on and get our guys together and continue to get better.
So what is kind of the number one focus this time of year? Because it's obviously the offseason. You don't have games for, countable games for another 4 or 5 months at this point. But what is this time of year like for you guys as a staff?
So my main focus is, first of all, to get those guys individually. So each individual coach, we do a lot more individual teaching, more than team. Just because, we want these guys to learn football. We want these guys to be good at their craft and position-specific techniques that we want them to learn. That is hard to do during the season because we don't get a whole lot of time for individual time. There's more of a push for, the X's and O's and, getting guys to be in the right place and doing the right things. But this time of year is more of a teaching technique and, how do I beat a guy on this play? How do I run a better route? And, how do I, beat an offensive lineman in a rip move or whatever it is. Just learning those, getting them more of a chance to learn those type of things. And then also, number two is just to figure out what we are good at and try and improve on those type of things.
How important then is having consistency both on your coaching staff and in terms of the players themselves at this time of year? As we all know, there's always people who come and go at the end of the season, at the start of this semester, and then at the end of this semester, you'll have guys come in and guys leave. We know this. Every team deals with this. So how important is it to have a strong group of players in right now that you've already worked with maybe for a season that you're getting ready to work with this upcoming season? If all of that attention is paid to the individual side, you get that opportunity to work with all these guys right now, right?
Yes. So this is really important for us. And some of these guys may not have had an opportunity to play a whole lot. We've had some transfers come in and just getting used to the system, which gives them an advantage in the fall. So when they come here, when we start up in the fall, it's not all fresh for them. There's things that we've been going over and over, so they get a kind of a jump start on what we'll do in the fall.
And how does that all then build up into what's going on Saturday?
So Saturday, we'll just come out and kind of display some of the things that we've been working on. It'll be a semi-scrimmage. We'll have some contact. It won't be like a real game, but these are just be, showing, what we've worked on, how we've improved, and let guys kind of showcase what they've been working hard for all spring.
So, it's called a spring game, and it's not a unique thing to us by any means, but I don't want to say it's a misnomer because – obviously the final score doesn't matter per se, but it's a different way for you guys to see and to showcase what you have been working on over the last however many days leading up into this weekend. So, again, calling it a spring game isn't quite the same thing as what we'll see this fall on Saturdays, but it is a different. I guess my question for you is, how different is it compared to what you'll be practicing at any point during this week? Is there anything you do fundamentally different?
Well, it'll be different just in the fact that defense will score points in certain ways. Offense will obviously score points by, getting first downs or touchdowns. Defense turnovers or whatever it is that we decide, how to keep score. But ultimately, it's we'll put those guys in certain situations that we want to see, that we want to work on. Things that may not come up all the time. Like we want to force those situations, 2-minute drills, backed up, red zone. Just everything that we can think of to try and help these guys feel comfortable when that situation does arise in the fall.
So those are this game on Saturday then does give you the opportunity to do some of those situational type of things that it gives you more structure rather than just let's run red zone in practice type of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I mean, it gives us a chance to force the situation. It's like, hey, we're going to be backed up on the 3-yard line. How can we get out? Or what do we need to do to get a first down? Things of that nature.
I've worked these over the last few years here for us, whether they've been on campus or not, and I usually am a person running the scoreboard or whatever, and it's fun to kind of figure out how it works because it's difficult enough during a real game making sure, like, all right, cool, we stop the clock at the exact right time. Don't want to have any issues. Fingers crossed, but it's always an interesting part of my job and then the fans' job to figure out how it all works. So is there anything special to look forward to this week? You mentioned defense can score points, changes what's up on the board. Like, how does that all work?
We're still working on it.
Fair enough.
Probably be similar to last season, but I'm still working on the score or how we're going to keep score, or even if we do keep score. Yeah. I mean, it really doesn't matter. And for those guys, it does matter to them because they want to compete and have a winner, which makes them feel a little bit better. But we do want great competition. We want guys to go out there and continue to improve and compete.
I think that's probably something that I didn't do a good job of emphasizing then because, it's not going to go down as a win or loss for anybody because it is just an intra-squad event. But, this is the way to create a simulated competition more than just one-on-ones and practices or whatever, which you and I have both been a part of. So this is a way for us to say, like, all right, my team won. And even though you're competing against your own teammates, there is that element to it, which, again, you can speak to much better than I can. That definitely has some sort of impact, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it creates the competition. It makes those guys want to be better than the other guy. So, just to get that competition is what we need. We need competition at positions to make sure that they're pushing each other to make each other better, and that's the only way we will get better is to make sure we have great competition.
I've talked to some of the guys over the last week or so, and this has been common over the last few years as well. These guys look forward to this, so I think that's a good job of a testament to what you guys are doing. That the fact that this is a legitimate enterprise that they are looking forward to. It's not just another practice. It is something that they're looking forward to participating in and having a winner and being able to showcase their stuff in front of maybe more people than would come to a practice. But this is. I think it's a cool thing because, like I said, these guys were excited for it. They think it's a big deal, and I think that's great because this is a big deal at a lot of places, and I think it's cool that this is being treated like it's got some weight to it. I think that's fun.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a good time again for the younger guys. Some of these guys have never played in a game; they've never put on a uniform, which we'll go out and we'll put uniforms on and make it. Feel like a real game, and this will be a good time for some of those guys to actually feel like they're part of the team.
How much has things changed? I know obviously we will know more maybe in October, but how much have things changed for you now that you're starting to get your feet under you here at Avila? You're now going into your first full season with a spring schedule and a spring game rather than just kind of jumping in halfway like you did last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little more streamlined. We came in with a brand new offense and defense, so that helped us out a lot going into this off season and spring, to where the guys knew the offense, they knew the defense, and we weren't trying to install a brand new offense and defense. So it put us ahead a little bit to where we can do a couple other things, and just feeling out the team and knowing what we needed to do. As far as me being here for my first year, like, it helped me kind of streamline things as well because, last year, first time head coach, not a whole lot of help from anybody else, and, hiring a new staff. And we've all been together now for a year, and we kind of know each other much better. We know the team, and it gives us a better opportunity to help these guys learn more.
I kind of asked this question earlier, but I want to reframe it a little bit. Something that we talked with basketball coach Tyler Bradyhoft about a couple of weeks ago. What you just said kind of calls that back to mind for me because it was his first year with that team for us here, and so he was telling us last time that they had to spend more time than they would have wanted installing things, making sure that people got it, getting everybody on the same page. And the word that he and I used all year was identity, making sure that we are on the same page. I know what you want and expect as our head coach, things of that nature. And I think that, and I'll certainly speak for myself, and I know I'm speaking for other people, that's not something that we as outsiders understand as much, because I think, as you well know, fans get impatient. Especially if you're used to winning, which you certainly can speak to that as well.
Yeah.
If something doesn't happen for whatever reason, then we're now questioning why. But what I feel is, if people don't understand, is that it takes time to put this stuff in place. And so you've got things you expect. You brought in all these new coaches who have things they want and expect. And so now that takes time to just get the players on board with it. And not to say whether they agree with it or not, but whether you can get them on the same page. Then once you get to that point, you've got to now teach them all that point, and then they have to be able to execute it. So what I think fans and myself don't necessarily always understand is that this stuff takes time. It doesn't happen immediately. Even if everybody's on the same page, everybody comprehends, you still have to learn how to execute. So is that now something that is focused on over the last couple of months now that the season is over, since you've got all those pieces still in place? You don't have to spend as much time getting everybody on board because you've already been able to set that foundation.
Yeah, I mean, guys know what I expect. After this season, and there's still some growing pains. I mean, we had a lot of guys that was with the old coaching staff, and it kind of, it's hard to switch guys' mindset to if they're used to doing one thing one way, and then you come in and say, hey, we're not doing it that way anymore. This is the way I want it done. And sometimes it takes some time, it takes some convincing to see that we're trying to do the best for our team. And I know before I got here there was some success, and every year is different.
Sure.
I mean, we had a young team. A lot of those guys that were here that went to the playoffs 2 years ago we're no longer here. We had guys that hadn't played a whole lot, but now we're building that experience. A lot of young guys got a chance to play last year. They got a lot of experience. We've brought some guys in that are going to help us that transferred in. So again, it does take some time to put those pieces together. It's always hard to win anyway.
Sure.
You can't just expect to show up and win games just because of what you've done in the past. You continually have to reinvent yourself and come out every year, every season, every game, and make sure that you play to the best of your ability.
I love that. I think you hear a lot in this sport, maybe more than others, about the idea of a coaching tree, philosophies, coaches that learn from either guys that they played for or coached under, then they become head coaches or coordinators themselves and bring some of that along with them. But I mean, no two coaches are alike. Even if you're part of that same coaching tree, I can't imagine there's ever been two coaches who coach the exact same way. So my point of that is that even if in any situation, if a head coach were to succeed another coach, even if they were to coach the exact same way as that previous head coach, there would still be a big learning curve for everybody involved. Is that fair to say?
No question.
Right.
I mean, every coach has taken something from another coach. But when you become a head coach, I mean, it has to be your own style because you may have some ideas that you like from one coach or you like or you don't like. But at the end of the day, it's how you come across to guys, how you communicate, how you teach, and it may be different. Even if you have the same type of ideas, the way you teach things will be different. Like it'll never be the same.
And that means that there's even more time for that, more time needed for that transition period that we were just talking about, which is why, I mean, I'm focusing so much on this because that's what not just this offseason, but any offseason is now built around, because you've had your opportunity to get your feet set here, to build, your coaching staff, and to get a lot of these guys now inculcated with everybody else. So now I'm assuming it's all about, reinforcing, teaching, like you said, getting better individually so you can grow collectively as a team. That's what this time of year is all about.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. It is about reinforcing all of the things that we talked about in the fall, all of the things that I talked about last summer that may have sunk in, may not have, but now it's starting to build because now our coaching staff we're all on the same page. We've got new guys, we've got freshmen coming in, we have transfers coming in, all these guys that make up a team which will always be different. So we got to keep reinforcing the things that I want, our tempos, our expectations, like everything that I expect as a coach has to come across, and it has to come through my assistant coaches as well.
What does a successful Saturday this weekend look like for you?
I just think hopefully we get through it. Nobody gets hurt.
No kidding.
And we see some of the things that we want to see. We want to make sure that we're making progress on the things that we've emphasized this offseason.
Okay. So, and that's all coming up this Saturday, the Avila football spring game. Saturday, April the 20th at Blue Valley Northwest High School. It all starts at 1:30 p.m. Stay tuned to our social media and to the Avila football social media for further details. Once again, that's this Saturday, and I know that there's uh, there are a lot of alumni of this program, not just of this program, but all of our program that are still in the area, and this is an opportunity for you guys to really build on, and we'll use this word again, to reinforce that connection, to continue to bridge some of those ties between this era and previous eras, because there have been a few eras of Avila football to now moving into the future as well.
Oh yeah, we've been making a big push to try and get in touch with our football alumni. I want those guys to be able to come around and hang out with us and see what we're all about, and just also just be around the guys to let them know, hey, and this football program hadn't been around for a relatively long time in terms of like some of these other programs, but we have a good base, I think, of alumni football players, and especially in the area that we hope we can get to come out and support us and hang out with the team, come meet us, and just talk to the guys about kind of their experiences. And hopefully we build that network of guys to where when our guys begin to graduate, they have somebody to talk to. There's somebody in the area that can help them out, whether it be football or job or life or whatever it is, just somebody to connect to.
Love that. And how's that chain of communication work? Should they talk to you directly? Should they talk to Beach, or who should they reach out to?
It's anybody. I'm open to talk to any of those guys. They can call me, email me, or offensive coordinator, or anybody on our staff, just to make sure that we get that connection. We just love to have those guys around.
That goes for all of our teams, to be honest. We will have 16 varsity athletics programs starting up this summer when we bring tennis back to the fold. You may have seen that news this week if you're an Avila Athletics fan, but that goes for alums of that team as well, because it's not a new program. So any of our 16 athletics teams, we always love to get alumni in the mix. Come out to a game, support us otherwise, follow us on social media, watch our broadcasts, all that stuff. The alumni is an integral part of what we do, not just in our department, but at this university for sure. So your opportunity, whether you're an alum, a fan, prospective student, or otherwise, to see Avila football in action this spring, coming up this Saturday. Once again, your details, Saturday, April the 20th at Blue Valley Northwest High School, not far from here. It all starts at 1:30 p.m. So stay tuned to our social media, the football social media, for further details. We'll have more info coming out today, on Monday, and further along this week. So once again, this Saturday, the Avila football spring game with Coach Alexander and the rest of the Eagles. That is head football coach Derrick Alexander. This is Eye on the Eagles. Thanks for watching. We'll be right back with head men's wrestling coach Eric Mateo in a couple of minutes. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of Eye on the Eagles, your all-access pass to all things Avila Athletics. Sports Information Director Tim Hackett, now joined by head men's wrestling coach Eric Mateo. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Tim, how's it going?
It's going well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Thank you very much for being here. Last minute for jumping in, much appreciated. What goes on for you and your team this time of year? We're mid-April, about 2 months out from your last actual competition, month and a half. So, what goes on for you this time of year?
Yeah. Once we got kind of the 2 weeks post the national tournament, we get back on the mats, get back in the weight room. So lifting 3 times a week and really focusing on getting big and strong, preparing for next season. And then, we've spoke previously before, but on the mats, really just focusing on improving technical details, kind of zooming in and really, really improving on small positions and not throwing a bunch of paint at the wall and hoping it sticks, but being intentional with our training. So development, we're really working on technical development right now in wrestling.
I love that word, and that was something that really jumped out at me the last time that you and I were on the show together, is being intentional about things. You now have you have 2 years with most of these athletes, but a full year as our head coach, 10 months, to have built this relationship with them, to learn their strengths, weaknesses, and otherwise, and now you know where to focus on at this point. So I'll kind of ask you a similar question to what I asked last time. At this time of year, are you focusing on building those strengths, building up those weaknesses, kind of across the board? What's the focus?
Yeah, it's different for every guy. We hit our individual meetings, end of year individual meetings, and if you don't do those, if you're not looking inwards and being reflective and objective in your reflection, then you're never gonna you'll get gains, but they won't be as big as they could be. So in those conversations, it's a real conversation, like, hey, this is where you suck, and that's okay because we have time to get better at it, but let's be realistic and make sure we're identifying these. So in those meetings, being sure that we're having objective conversations about where we can improve as an individual, and not just in terms of winning wrestling matches, but we make sure to set goals in our program, obviously outcome wrestling related goals, academic GPA goals, and then we also talk about our personal lives and how we are in our interpersonal relationships, and some guys have those goals, so making sure we're paying as much attention to detail on those goals as we are the rest of our lives, because we want well-rounded human beings, not just wrestlers.
I love that too. It's something that I tell people on my side of things, when I was an instructor here, but also the students that work with me. A critical way to get better, or a crucial aspect of it, is that self-reflection. I call it film study because I'm certainly no wrestler, but it's the same idea for us, like I feel in the media world. So I tell all of my students is that one of the 3 ways that I always teach them how to get better is to go back and watch your own stuff. I do it to myself. I hate doing it because I have to go back and watch, as the case is, I sit here and look at my own face for an hour and I hate doing it, or I listen to my voice and hear how I'm talking when I'm calling a wrestling match or a baseball game, whatever it is, and figure out what it is you do well, if anything, what it is you do poorly, if anything, and then everything else in the middle, because most everything else is somewhere in that middle. So how can you get better at all those other things is you've got to self-evaluate. You've got to have some other people that can evaluate for you. But to me, that is one of the best ways to get better, is to go in and be, like you said, be honest with yourself and understand, look, there are things that I need to do to get better, but these are also things that I am happy with for my own performance, individually and across a full season. So yeah, I feel like that is a really crucial way to get better. Yeah,
it is, and doubling down on those things that we're good at. Let's get better at them. The attention to detail, like I said, and our practices, you come to any practice maybe November through February, and it's, hey, here's XYZ, we're going to work these 3 things. Every guy's working those 3 things. You come into practice right now, it looks a lot more like a workshop. Guys picking each other's brains, one athlete teaching another athlete, coaches working with athletes, and it's not all the same thing. So that's what's really fun this year, and that kind of transitions well into our freestyle and Greco scene, the Olympic styles, which is pretty exciting. Just in the wrestling world right now, the Olympic team trials are this weekend. Some guys have experience wrestling the Olympic styles through, youth, middle school, high school, and some have 0, right? So it's there are different styles, freestyle and Greco, but in the end of the day, it's wrestling. But a lot of these skills that you learn that are specific to freestyle and Greco, they translate, maybe not directly, but indirect skills that you can use in a folk style wrestling match.
That was definitely my next question for you. It's something that we've talked about with Zach a lot over the years, with the differences in styles between men's and women's wrestling at the collegiate level. But how different are those two styles that you were just referring to, and then how much of a challenge or not is it for somebody to transition to or from?
Yeah. It's not a challenge because in the end of the day, it's a game. It's wrestling. You can. My daughters are 4 and 2, and I say wrestle, and they wrestle. Everyone's wrestled before, so there's just slightly different rules around it. So like I said, it can be uncomfortable, but once you get past that point and you just view it, and that's another thing this time of year is, guys, they want to go in and they want to sweat and they want to feel like they're working hard, which is easy to do. Anybody can do that. Any wrestler, can go and do that. But can we take it back a notch? You might not be getting the most physically out of this workout, but that's not what it's about. So once you can get past the frustration, past the eagerness to try and work really hard, then you can look at these techniques. And right now, leading into the U23 World Team Trials, which we'll be sending a couple guys to, transitioning to training freestyle and Greco. So, the main difference for the uninitiated, and I could go into depth about this and
Sure.
Help educate those that don't know. In college, we wrestle folk style or collegiate wrestling, right? And this most layman's way I can explain it is college wrestling and high school wrestling and collegiate folk style wrestling is about control. Freestyle and Greco is more about explosion and amplitude and exposure, right? So you don't have to control a guy, right? There's no top-bottom. There is top-bottom position, but the ref will stand you up after 10 to 18 seconds. So it's not about holding a guy. There's no benefit from holding a guy down. That's why, the big MMA card this past weekend, you look at some of the wrestlers on there, the best wrestlers in MMA usually come from folk style, a.k.a. Americans. Because folk style, we're the only country in the world that wrestles folk style. Everyone else does freestyle Greco. They have their own versions of folk style. But, generally American folk style wrestlers dominate MMA because of the control aspect.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how does that translate?
From freestyle Greco?
Or from I was talking from wrestling to MMA.
Well, think about it. So, prime example, freestyle Greco, you are rewarded for the higher amplitude moves you do. So if we lock up and I throw you from your feet to your back, right, then that's 4 points. Yep. But I could let you go, and I don't have to hold you there.
Gotcha.
I get my 4 points no matter what.
Okay.
Freestyle Greco, folk style, I could throw you to your back, and if I don't control you, which is the big key word in the rule book, then it could be 0 points. So in MMA, if I throw you to your back and I don't hold you there, it means nothing.
I get out.
Unless I put you on your head and hurt you and cause damage. But as the point of a takedown most times in MMA is to gain control. Okay. Right. So the control aspect is what carries over from folk style to MMA.
Makes sense. So I love that. So it's about control versus exposure. I like that.
Yeah. And as you're learning freestyle, which our women wrestle, anytime your shoulder's exposed to the mat, it could be a split second. That's 2 points. Where in folk style, I just do that, you're safe. It's no points. Right. So less rolling, less scrambling per se in freestyle Greco.
Okay, makes sense. And this is important because of the competition that is coming up here soon that you just hinted at, the U23s, which we have had plenty of representation at before over the years, and it sounds like that's going to be in the cards for you guys again this year.
Yeah, and U23s is great because, like I said, it takes you out of your folk style comfort zone. You're wrestling freestyle and Greco. That's one thing. So you're learning new skills that relate to wrestling, and you're competing on a big stage. So it helps translate to when you get to the national tournament. Hey, this isn't the first time you've ever wrestled at something with 8 mats or 12 mats, and the World Team Trials. So U23 is the UWW. Basically, the Wrestling Federation, International Wrestling Federation. U23 is the age group. So right now is they had U20s, which you have to qualify for. Okay. U23s you don't have to qualify for. So if you're between 20 and 23, and you're physically able, we want our guys competing there. So this is literally to compete for a chance to represent the USA at the world championships. So it's not just some little tournament. It's a big deal. So to place in that is impressive. So then, that's what we're trying to go do. And time on the mat experience, that's another thing. So it's just nice also during the year to have something to train for. Sure. Wrestlers get into the habit of having something, like it's just a good motivator to have something to train for and always be chasing something, right? So
that makes a ton of sense to me. And we were just talking a little bit about it with DA a minute ago that they've got their spring game this weekend, and it's not a real game. There's no wins or loss that's ascribed to it, and you're competing against yourselves. It's an intra-squad. So, but having that, just the aura, the auspices of there being a game to it, means that there's a little bit more to play for, if you will. So this is a huge step up from that. So I'm comparing them, not equating the two things. This is not just an intra-squad. This is a real competition against elite-level athletes, but it is something out of your college season that you are now as a wrestler, striving for and looking forward to preparing for and then competing at.
Yeah, 100%. And elite actually might be an understatement. Like, guys, they're going to be Division I national champions there. There's going to be world medals, guys who have won world medals, guys who have won, been on Olympic teams competing there. Guys who have won U23 world championships. Sure. It's exciting. It's you're gonna run into a hammer. So like the focus is not going out there and winning. It never really is. But even less so for this event. Let's go out there, let's perform. Let's get exposed to some of the best wrestlers in the United States in this age group. And get more mat experience. And also it's just a fun trip, right? Anytime you're traveling. There's a big dichotomy with freestyle and Greco and folk style, because folk style, it's our Super Bowl, right? It's wrestling Super Bowl for collegiate wrestlers in America. Freestyle and Greco is it's summertime. You're wearing swim trunks, flip flops. It's not as, you can see how serious me or some of my guys get when it comes January, February. Is no nonsense, and it's a big deal. Yeah. It is a big deal, but there's just less pressure, and it's hard to explain to guys who haven't wrestled, but there's just less pressure to perform because you might be inexperienced, and there might be 60 guys in the bracket and maybe 30 of them are inexperienced, but so it's more of a laid back feel. It's good for the guys. It's good for the guys to have fun while competing in wrestling.
I was expecting you were going to go with the flip-flops. I was expecting you were going to go with tunics and togas as well, but maybe we're not quite that relaxed in old Greco-style wrestling. We're not quite to that stage.
Yeah.
We're still in the modern age.
You might be onto something, though. Maybe we'll have to bring that back.
That would be a way to at least market the event.
Right.
For better or for worse.
Well, there's a lot of we can do robes. There's some schools out there that still do robes, like boxing robes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Iowa State does them. Yeah.
Might have to check this out. That's kind of interesting.
Yep. So we might have to bring those back.
So we had 3 guys at this event last year, I know, and you said that there isn't, as much of a qualification process like there is at the U20 level. So it's really, to use your words, it's really anybody who's able and willing to participate in something like this that could potentially qualify for this type of event or be entered into this type of event?
From our team?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a certain requirements that I hold. We do a lot of fundraising, and it's so we can go do events like this. Sure. But basically, so we will do a training camp. We're not just going willy-nilly into it. We're going to train for this. So if you do what's required in training camp as far as days trained, if you had a certain GPA first semester, and then it's hard to say second semester, still getting there. But if your grades are on track for second semester, and then do all the fundraising requirement, so that's one of the huge things. And for recruits too, that's what I tell them. We want them wrestling year round. As there's a healthy balance. You don't maybe be 365, but you need to be wrestling in the spring and summer and developing those freestyle and Greco skills. So a lot of kids in high school do it. They'll wrestle their folk style season, take a break, and then they'll get onto the freestyle Greco circuit where it's, the freestyle and Greco state tournament. Then it's on to, getting on a dual team representing your state, or maybe going to Southern Plains, which is like a regional. And then, of course, for high school kids, Fargo National Tournament is the big one. So kind of staying on that same cycle for collegiate guys.
I think that this event is also important because if any of these guys guys, not just our guys, but anybody in this event, if they're an American college athlete, if they have any designs on competing internationally, you need to understand this style of wrestling. Like you said, maybe it's not crazy different. It's still the same sport, but if you have zero experience in this, then you need to gain some of that experience by competing in events like this if you have any desire of competing at the Olympic level or whatever other international levels there may be, because that is, like you said, those events operate under the freestyle rules. And if you don't have any experience with that, then you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball in that regard.
Yeah. And are we out there to go be on a world team? Maybe not
Sure.
right now yet, but taking this, that's how you get there. You're not going to be there on your first try, and so we have to develop a freestyle and Greco culture here at Avila. And we have some, Darius helped us get, he was on the podium, took 8th in Greco. So and just getting guys out there, more experience. Like, you can't overstate that enough, especially at a tournament as credentialed as the U23s is going to be.
That was one of the things I wanted to bring up for sure, and I hinted at it a little bit when you were with us last night. Hinted at it a little bit in our coverage of what Darius did a month ago, but it was not lost on me that he started this whole year by placing at the U23s and then finished this past year by placing at NAIA Nationals. That's a pretty impressive way to bookend your season.
Yeah, it is. I'm just proud of that guy. Took 8th in the country. So that 7 spots up. That's the guy representing Team USA at the World Championships. So and then obviously his national tournament finish, 6th the best wrestler in the country. Number 6. Like, that's pretty awesome. So I'm proud of him. I'm super happy, and hopefully he's going to be around next year. Not on the competing side, but he'll be helping some of these young guys achieve their dreams.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I know that's something that he's been looking forward to as well.
Yep. And now we've done it. And like I said, we've got the first one out of the way. We've talked about that. So, what team is it going to be? This next team, 24-25, that has 2 All-Americans? Who's going to be the first to be a 2-time All-American? So it's exciting to have that first notch on the belt, and just keep building and keep growing. And me and our GA were lifting with the guys this morning, and I was just thinking, we're going to get everything we want, not by bringing really talented guys in, any of that. Like, yes, we're going to recruit, but everything's going to be through hard work and grit. It makes it mean that much more when you do get a guy like Darius on the podium at 6th, because he worked so hard for it, and he earned it.
Yeah, no question. I mean, his performance in that event, get to that podium at that event, which we talked about the last time, without beating some real talent on the way, without getting yourself into a good position by winning matches on the season to get yourself a seed in his case, just to get into that field, first of all, obviously. And you don't place unless you beat some real quality athletes. And there were some people that had to beat him to do the same thing. When so that was a quality opponent as well for those guys to beat to place as well. So I mean, that's something that it's not unique to this sport, but is something that is really pronounced in this sport. Is that effort is rewarded. Now, you and I have talked. Sometimes people get seeds that we don't necessarily agree with, but and you and I talked about how there were a good number of number 1 or number 2 seeds who ended up winning their bracket this year, the NAIAs. But you don't get that number 1 seed easily. You wake up and become that number 1 seed that is supposed to be a reflection of your effort, your success, dedication, and the work that you put in over the course of the years. So to me, it's just a reflection of what you just said. In this sport, effort is hopefully rewarded in that final analysis.
Yeah, and the seeding criteria, the system is not the best, but it's probably the best one we've ever had. Us coaches in NAI, we're working hard to make the best system. It definitely matters where you fall, where those seeds fall, and there's a certain amount of luck, but with anything in sports, you have to be prepared to take the opportunity when it presents itself. So
luck's a part of skill, as they say, right?
Right.
You mentioned recruiting as well. So what's that look like this time of year? Because I know you guys are off to a good start on that.
Yeah, it's been exciting. I came on July 1 in 23. So from that day on, I was recruiting for this class, and we've got some commits, local guys, a couple transfers. Yeah, it's just exciting. It's exciting to have some guys that I have recruited, and I'm from Missouri, so it's fun to build and continue to build on relationships that I've had, and whether that's with Olathe South in Kansas, where I coached for a couple years in high school, and so we have 2 of those guys coming here next year. And like I said, just continue to build relationships, guys that I've wrestled with in college in my career that are now coaches all over Missouri. So, yeah. And then even in high school, guys I wrestled with in high school, we got a guy from Parkway South. His high school coach was my high school teammate.
Oh, nice.
So he actually was a Missouri Baptist alumni, but we remained friends. And so it's good to have those relationships and build on those. And, yeah, looking to have just a big team next year that is ready to compete in the room and have some depth at every single weight class, and some young guys to come start challenging and pushing these older guys.
I love that about college sports especially, and I don't want to say it's more true at this level compared to anything else. I don't know that to be the case, but you continue to uncover those connections, and that's something that we hear all the time, especially as newer head coaches, that that is something that you, not just you, but you, the general, have to do, is to tap into those connections that you have built as an athlete, as a young coach, whatever, to now develop your own program now that you are the head coach here. And I love learning about all of those connections. Some of them are going to be pretty obvious. If anybody knows anything about you and they see the Olathe South on there, they'll be able to understand where that connection may have come from. But anything else like that, you just mentioned the Parkway South, I mean, no one's going to know that immediately, what that connection is, what that relationship is right off the bat. So those types of storylines are fun, and that makes it, it makes it fun and interesting to learn about, as a media member, as, somebody, adjacent to the team. But I just think that makes it just more of an interesting story as the year goes on, rather than just somebody that you found somewhere or other.
For sure. I'm pretty much, everyone, not everyone, but a lot of the guys coming to this team, there is some kind of connection, and that's how you do it. That's how you have to do it. People who their coaches have either wrestled with me, coached me. My high school coach is still running a very good program out of Willard, Missouri. So we're actively recruiting out of that area, and so it's all about connections. And I'm very, very grateful. I have a lot of support from Missouri wrestling. High school coaches in Missouri that have been in my corner and are supporting what we're trying to do here at Avila. So I think as the years go on, the seasons go on, I'll continue to get more and more local guys. If you look at our staff, 2 guys from Missouri, 2 guys from Oklahoma, 2 guys from Kansas, plus Darius now. That's a 3rd guy from Missouri. So Missouri, Oklahoma, Kansas. As far as wrestling, there's so much talent there.
Sure.
And so we're trying to pull some of those guys in to compete here for us. And it's exciting because there is that state pride and that competition between us coaches, like who can get the best guys from their respective states, and it's constant trash talk. And if you're wondering, wrestling-wise, it's Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas. That's just the way it is right now.
Just in the youth scene, or on terms of your team?
I would say if you're pulling – because there's a lot of statistics. You would like it. In the media, they break it down like, hey, at the D1s there was X amount of guys from each state. And, but if you break them all down, they did a breakdown. All Americans in college between JUCO, NAI, D3, D2, D1, Oklahoma, and it's in that order: Oklahoma, Kansas, or Missouri, Kansas. So yeah, if you're curious, number 1's Pennsylvania.
That's not a surprise necessarily. Get some folks staying home to some of those schools, right?
Yep.
I guess it's not really. Well, it's kind of a surprise to me.
Well, and it's by far, I think Kansas had 4 All-Americans, 5 All-Americans. 4 were NAI, 1 was D1.
Yeah.
And they were number maybe 12 or 13, somewhere in there. Pennsylvania had 57.
57 total
something like that.
All-Americans
Something
were
crazy.
born in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
That's absolutely nuts. And they don't all compete at Penn State.
No, right, yeah.
Though many of them do.
Yeah.
What would a successful spring look like to you before you get to that July 1st anniversary for yourself?
Finishing strong academically. We had a 3.37 GPA as a team first semester. The goal is a 3.5. First semester it was a 3.5 again. Really, I think success would be beating that 3.37 as a team. And then, I think we have 6 guys right now that are on recovery from surgery. So those surgeries have been done and they've been successful. So now a good chunk of our guys are on the road to recovery. So making sure that they start their recovery off to the right foot and they're attacking that, just like I expect them to attack our wrestling training and our weights training and our academics. You're attacking that rehab like a madman, and you're going to, guys get hurt. For instance, Logan, he tore his ACL, and, there's 2 ways you can go here, or 3 ways really. Really, you could fall off the wagon. You can be mediocre and just do the basic requirements to get through your rehab, or you can attack it like a madman, like I would expect we attack anything else. And that's our motto is live in the way of the eagle, right? So if you can attack wrestling practice when you're healthy, then you can attack rehab when you're recovering from an injury. So to answer your question, getting those guys that are rehabbing from surgery off on the right foot, because there is just going to be less touch points in the summertime. We will have a good number of guys here staying over the summer, but guys that do go back home, making sure that they have a training plan and a plan to get on the mat and a plan to wrestling, because the summertime, yes, it's a break, but we still need to be developing, and the summer it needs to be a stepping stone. It can't be a regression, so that when we get here in the fall, we're ready to go and chase the goals of 24-25.
When is that U23 competitions we get in on our radars?
Yeah, it's going to be end of May 31st, June 1st, and 2nd.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's and we'll know obviously which of our guys will be going out there before too long, so you can start to concentrate have a concerted effort to prepare those guys for that competition here over the next month plus. Then.
Yep. We're kind of finishing up our team practices right now. Once we get through those, we're going to start we'll give them a little break again, and then we'll start a hard training camp, maybe going 2 times a day for those that are training U23s. It's another exciting time, good thing to train for, and like I said, just having something on the calendar circled instead of you're just training to train.
Sure. Get a direct something to shoot for, something to achieve.
Yep.
It's awesome. Well, you guys have certainly achieved a lot over the last year plus. We're excited to see what's coming next.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yep, thank you.
U23's competition's coming up starting. You just started here live on May 31st. We'll have a number of our athletes there competing once again. That is head men's wrestling coach Eric Mateo. Thanks for joining the show, Coach.
Yep, thank you, Tim.
And thank you for watching as always. Thank you as always to Tanner's at Redbridge for hosting us. And thank you as always to my team for helping make this happen. It looks a whole lot better than it did when I was doing this by myself a couple of years ago. So many thanks to Darian Miner and Keaton Ashby for all of the work that they do for me and for us. So for all of us and for everybody here at Tanner's and for all of us at Avila Athletics, this is Tim Hackett saying thank you for watching. Only a couple more episodes of this show left in the school year. Hard to believe, but we are almost at the finish line. We'll see you next week for another episode of Eye on the Eagles. Until then, stay safe and so long from Kansas City.